Good evening, everyone. We are so glad to see you, and thank you for coming out. I'd like to begin with a word of prayer, so if you'll bow your heads with me. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this day and this week that you've brought us through. I thank you for each one of these students. I thank you for the opportunities that each one has had to serve you in a foreign country. I just ask that you bless our time together tonight as we recall memories and special events and how you led and guided and blessed us as we were in Paraguay. And so now I just turn this evening and this meeting over to you and ask that your will be done. And we thank you for hearing our prayers, and we ask all these things in Jesus' name, amen. Well, I'd like to start by, again, welcoming everyone. Thank you for coming out this evening. I'd like to start by letting you know that our mission trip was led by Maranatha Volunteers International. And if you're not familiar with that organization, I would like to let you know that it is a fantastic organization that you can go on mission trips with them. And their primary purpose and goal, they build wells, dig wells, they build churches, they build schools, all with the goal of outreach, trying to bring a community together and teaching the community about the love of God. And so of course, I've always heard about Maranatha, but a special thank you to the Marsas who brought it to my attention years ago. They gave a AYA presentation about a trip that they had been on to Africa with Maranatha, and I was like, oh, that sounds really great. And so anyhow, our trips with Maranatha have been born thanks to that. So anyhow, I want to ask you guys in the audience, how many of you, by a raised hand, how many of you have ever been on a mission trip before? So a lot of you. And so you know the blessings that come from going on a mission trip. So I want to ask you students, by raising your hand, how many of you, this was the very first time you'd ever been on a mission trip? Raise your hand if this was the first time. Wow, I have several first-timers on here. Of you guys, just as a little side note, first time on an airplane for anybody? Noah? Okay, very good. So we had some fun firsts. Now, how many of you up here have been on 4 mission trips with GAA? Raise your hand if you've been on 4 mission trips with GAA. That would be most of my seniors. So that's really exciting that Greenville Adventist Academy provides these opportunities for our high school students, that they have the opportunity to go and serve in a foreign country. So we found out that we were going to Paraguay last year, and we did the normal preparations, started to get our vacation Bible school things together and all of those plans. But then over Christmas, we found out that we would be preaching a revival series. So kudos to my seniors who quickly pulled together a revival series. And so my seniors they studied and they wrote a series for this mission trip. So if you are a senior, raise your hand. So these all wrote and prepared, and also my junior too, Kenny, he also did that as well. So my junior and seniors did that. So my freshmen and sophomores, meanwhile, worked on health talks, preparing Bible stories, preparing nature nuggets. And so a lot of time and effort was put into preparing for this beforehand. We also collected things, and I'm sure some of you helped with that, and we appreciate that. We collected crayons, and we collected personal care items, and we collected stuffed animals, and all of those things that, thanks to my students and chaperones, were packed. And we also took with us Steps to Christ. And also, in thinking about preparing for Vacation Bible School, a huge shout out to Joyce Gerard, who cut out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pieces of things for us to take. And so that was a huge blessing. So if you've ever been on a mission trip with me before, this was actually a huge blessing. What time did we leave the school? Normally we leave in the middle of the night, but this go around, you guys had it easy. What time did we leave? Someone say? 7:54, that's a very exact number, okay. So it was close to 8, but apparently someone was a real clock watcher, 7:54 in the morning, so it was not a hardship this go around. So we drove down to Atlanta, thanks to Mr. Dave. Special shout out to our bus driver, Mr. Dave. He got us there safe and sound. And then we flew out and we landed in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and then we flew on to Asunción, Paraguay. And we got there the next day, Thursday afternoon. So it was definitely a red eye and a whole bunch more. So as soon as we got there, Lilybeth, what did you experience when we got there? Tell us that story.
So, okay, there were the Maranatha workers, and they gave us a really warm welcome. There were like 2 or 3 of them. And so as we're loading our stuff on the bus, I see this girl, and she looks really, really familiar. And I think that it's one of the translators from Bolivia. And I tell my mom and I tell Kaylee, and they're both like, that's not her. We're in Paraguay. And yes, that wasn't Bolivia, and this was Paraguay. But I was like, that's Jacqueline. I know it. I swear it's Jacqueline. And so I was like, you know what, maybe it's not her. And so we're walking by, and she sees me, and then she goes, Lilybeth? And it was the translator from Bolivia when we went our freshman year. So it was really fun to see her again, and eventually, this may be jumping the gun a little bit, and I'm sorry, but the girl who had translated my health talks and VBS as a freshman when I was a freshman in Bolivia, translated my sermon my senior year, and so it was a really cool full circle moment.
That was really, really fun. Now, when we were going through customs, Elijah, tell us about that. What was the experience going through customs?
So what was really cool, you know how you get off the plane and you regroup for 3 times, people go to the bathroom, and then you have to go through customs and security and everything all over again. Well, this year, it was pretty quick. We had our normal grouping thing, and then we just put our suitcases, everything on view. They don't even stop anything. And we pick it up and we walk out the door. And that was that.
Why? And that's like, well, okay, sure, you just put your luggage on and send it through, and we walked out. But why is that such a huge deal?
Well, previously, it's been harder. We've had people question things, stop us for various reasons. But this time, no one blinked an eye, and we just walked right on through.
So when you are carrying thousands of pairs of glasses, multiple boxes of crayons, tons of personal care items, lots of stuffed animals, that tends to flag you as you go through customs in a foreign country, because often they think that you're taking things in to sell, which they don't appreciate that. And so it's always a point of concern, a point of prayer for us as we go through customs. And this probably was the one of, if not the easiest experience that we had going through customs. What an easy thing that was. So we got there Thursday evening, and we began our work on Friday. We had 2 teams each day. One team would go to construction, and one team would go to vision clinic. So here's our day at a glance, if you're curious what a mission trip is like for us. We got up and had breakfast at 6:30. We left the hotel at 7:30 to be on the work site by approximately 8 o'clock. We would work all day until around 3:30 or 4, come back to the hotel, get cleaned up for supper, have supper at 5:30, and then leave at 6:30 or 6:15 to 6:30 for the VBS and Revival Series location. And so then we would get back to the hotel around 9 o'clock, and then we would have evening worship and go to bed and start all over again the next day. So the kids were very busy from sunup till sundown. And Abigail Wetmore, tell us about your alarm clock.
Yeah, it was, okay, so where we were staying, there was trees behind our building, and every morning, without fail, the birds would start singing, and they would always wake me up in time to get ready and have my devotion. And it was really cool because they would wake me up before the alarm clock would go off, which was really nice.
So a bird alarm clock that God sent to wake her up for her devotions. I thought that was really special. So we're going to first talk about construction. So we had 6 days of construction, and how many of you worked on construction at some point or another? All right, so tell me, somebody who has a microphone or can pass it to someone, what did it look like when we got there? Isaac, you've got a microphone. Tell us what it was like when we got there.
It was just a roof.
A roof and
like a little flat place.
And so were there any blocks yet, Isaac?
There was one row of blocks.
Okay, so one row of blocks all the way around. So what was our goal then? Santi, what was the goal by the end of the week? What did we hope to accomplish?
To have the walls up and yeah.
That's it. Have the walls up. Did we meet that goal? Yes, we did. We met that goal. Praise the Lord. And we have such fantastic chaperones that help us along the way, especially Tom Cushing, who is sort of in charge of oversees the construction for our team on mission trips. And tell me, let's see, Tucker, why don't you tell us what the church looked like? They had an original church, and we were building a church right beside their existing church. What was that church like?
It was pretty rough. It was looking like it was going to fall over. It wasn't very stable.
And was it big?
No, it was pretty small, probably about 10 by 12. Yeah, it was small.
Yeah, you could fit it on this stage probably. It was very small. And so the building that we helped them to construct was, I'm not good about that kind of thing, maybe 3 times bigger or something like that. What do you think, Coach? Maybe 3 or 4 times bigger than what the original was or is. So there are different jobs at a work site. Kenny, tell us what some of the jobs are at a work site.
You have bricklayers and mortar makers, but we didn't really do that this time, and you just moved the bricks to different places, but that's about it.
So you'll see different pictures of people up there, and they're hauling bricks around and boards around and building scaffolding, or at least being on the scaffolding. And so a lot of you, how many of you had the opportunity then to use the mortar and put bricks in place? How many of you were able to do that? So a lot of you guys were able to do that. How many of you, that was the very first time you had ever done that? Okay, several of you. So you're learning some fantastic new skills then. That's great. Tell me something, somebody tell me something new that you learned in construction site. What's something new that you learned? Colin, I know you did. Go ahead.
I basically just learned how to lay block and concrete and all the other stuff about it.
Tell me how you do that, because I personally have actually never worked on construction site. I've always been in vision clinic. So tell me the process.
You basically just get the mortar and lay it down underneath it and then place the block down.
And then what do you do with the stuff that squishes out?
You gotta put it back with the other stuff.
Okay, so you just have to scrape it off and put it back in the bucket then? And how did you guys keep the bricks or the cement blocks from, teeter-tottering back and forth?
We used rebars.
Okay, so rebar, and then what else?
And then we poured concrete with U-blocks and different things.
So it's quite a sound and sturdy structure by the time you're done with that. Now, I have to give a shout out to Marcus. He is our block laying beast. You guys have some big shoes to follow next year, you boys and girls, with that. But Marcus has always been really fast and furious and careful and good with the work that he does. So we all appreciate that, especially the Maranatha construction. Tucker, tell us about the Maranatha workers there at the job site. So it wasn't just us there. We had others.
Yeah, they were really nice, and every time we messed up, they just walk over, since we can't really talk to them because they speak Spanish, and they just fixed it for us if we did something wrong. They just were nonchalant about it and just fixed it.
They didn't roll their eyes and huff and puff and give big sighs?
No, they were really nice.
So Maranatha sends a construction team to the sites, and so they have, how many guys were there? 5, 6, 5? Okay, so they had workers that they had hired to be at the site as well. And so there's always professionals, if you will, there at the site helping manage and oversee the work that goes on. So can somebody tell me, did anyone have maybe an interesting experience there at construction that you'd like to share?
One of the days, there were a lot of kids that wanted to hang out with us, and so Jacqueline was keeping them occupied for a while, but she's getting kind of like running out of ideas, and so Coach let us take a break to play with the kids, me and Kaylee and Lily Beth, and it was a lot of fun. We started out just kind of talking to them through Jacqueline, because I don't speak Spanish, and but what was really neat is we taught them Duck Duck Goose and they learned it for the first time, and which in Spanish is Pato Pato Ganso, and so we had them play it. And one of the kids told me, he's like, "This is so fun," and he's like, "We've never had a game like this before." So it was cool to teach them that, and then we sang some of our songs for them from choir and just random songs we knew that. Yeah, they obviously didn't understand, but they thought it was fun.
So going on a mission trip is more than just making sure that all the blocks get in the right place and everybody gets a pair of glasses. It's also about building relationships, and that's hugely important. And so I'm always excited when the kids have an opportunity to make friends with people there. So does somebody have a favorite part of construction? If you have a microphone, tag your it. Tell what your favorite part of construction was.
Probably just talking to the workers, because I found out, I was talking to the foreman, and he told me that his cousin, he worked with Maranatha, and I asked him, where? And he said he worked in Kenya. And actually, we were last year in Kenya. We worked with him. Not with him, with his cousin, in the construction site. So that was pretty cool.
That's always fun when you can make connections. You know, there's, what do they say, 2 degrees of separation between Adventists. Abigail.
I'd say my favorite part was laying the mortar.
I'd say it's every time I did something right, the construction workers would give us a thumbs up, and it was awesome.
There were dogs at the construction site.
That we were forbidden to touch.
I touched some of them. There was a really small one that was white and black, and it was really cute, and so I just liked watching the dogs all day.
I think my favorite, normally I really enjoyed doing cement, but this year we didn't do cement. So I really liked filling in the mortar cracks where people had left behind. It's kind of fun, little peaceful job. I like tying rebar as well. It's pretty fun.
So there's lots of different jobs to do at the construction site. So we're going to shift gears a little bit. Well, let me ask, is there anybody else who has something that you would like to share that happened at construction before we leave construction? Anybody have something? Noah.
It was fun bringing cement back and forth between people, because once you get there, you're pretty much going right back because of how many people were loading cement.
So you feel very productive. It's good to feel busy. Good. Anybody else? So let's talk about Paraguay. Honestly, a couple of months ago, Paraguay was simply a place on a map to me, and I knew nothing about it to speak of. So now we've been. So what can you tell us about Paraguay? What does it look like? Abigail, tell me about how it looks.
It's really tropical. There's a lot of green plants, and I thought it was really cool that there were palm trees, because there's not palm trees in Greenville, Tennessee. So yeah, but yeah, it was really hot, but the rain helped a lot. So yeah. And
and you might have said this. I'm sorry. It's fairly flat. I mean, I'm sure there's other places in Paraguay that aren't, but where we were and the places that we traveled, it was actually quite flat, but lots of trees, and it was beautiful. Okay, everybody take your microphones and pass it one person to your left. Your other left. Sounds like me. So tell me, Abigail touched a little bit on the weather. So if we're going to sum it up, we can sum it up in one word, and it is hot. Actually, 3 words: hot, hotter, hottest, right? I mean, it was hot, we're not going to lie. But what made it refreshing? What did we have to look forward to at the end of every day? Most of you didn't take advantage of this, but there was what, Caden? What was there?
The pool.
There was a pool at the hotel, and actually most of the kids didn't choose to swim in the pool, which is fine, because they would go to rest in their room that had air conditioning. Yes. So that was a huge blessing to be able to at least cool off. As soon as you stepped outside, it was going to be hot and sweaty again, but it was still nice. Now, I want to talk about the weather, though. Emma, do you remember when we got there, we looked at the forecast, like the 10-day, 5-day, 7-day, whatever forecast. What was the forecast?
Rain.
Rain, and then it was going to?
Rain.
And then after it rained, it was going to?
Rain more.
Yeah, rain more. So we had a lot of rain in our forecast. Now, that's problematic when you're trying to actually build something outside, right? So we clearly made that a matter of prayer over and over and over again. And Emma, how many days at construction were we rained out?
It was just sprinkling one day.
Okay. Only one day did it sprinkle, and it just sprinkled. And so the rain would either come in the nighttime or after construction was over. It did downpour one day, though, but that one day was? Sabbath. So it was a good day for us to rest and relax, and it's okay that it rained. And it kind of helped reinforce the idea that if it did rain, it's next to impossible to do construction in that heavy downpour with all the lightning and whatnot. So it certainly was a heavy rain. And we were just so blessed that the Lord held back the rain for us. And what was nice, though, at the construction site, Colin, some days, not every day, but some days, the forecast of rain at least gave you what?
Oh yeah, clouds.
Clouds. Gave you cloud coverage, which really helped with the heat. And so we were thankful for that, thankful for the sprinkles when they happened. Now, we had, if you were in Kenya with us last year, we know that getting to the destination took a long time, an hour and a half, 2 hours over bumpy roads. But this time we were a little more blessed. Caden, how long did it take us to get to the work site, approximately?
25 to 30 minutes?
Yeah, only 25 to 30 minutes. It was very close. And the vision clinics were about that much. 2 of the vision clinics we went further out, but most things were fairly close. So that was nice. That was a real treat to be able to have our work closer to the hotel. And tell us about, though, the bus situation. Who would like to tell us about the bus? Elijah would like to tell us about the saga, the ongoing, but we've only got so much time, Elijah, so you can't tell every single bus issue.
So, I'll just make it short. The first bus we got on right after the airport, we were traveling fine for like 3 hours, and then for some reason it just stopped and wouldn't go. And it's a manual bus, right? So he's trying to mess with the clutch or whatever, and it wouldn't go. It just jerk and stop, and he'd try to start it in gear. A bunch of crazy stuff. Anyways, we were gonna have this other bus come that already had some passengers on it, pick us up and take us to the rest of the way. And then we were trying to move our bags around to the other bus. And then for some reason, the other bus started moving again. And so we were able to get back on the bus and finish the journey, pushing it out of a little hump in the road. And anyways, it was crazy. Yeah, and
then through the week, that wasn't the only bus issue. They kind of all blend together, truthfully.
Mm-hmm. They really do. We had probably 5 different buses throughout the week. We used this other company that was in the local town we were at. And one night, I think the battery died or something, right? Anyways, they couldn't get the bus started, so for one night they had to walk to VBS. And we had to wait for the bus to get fixed, and yeah.
It was just an ongoing saga, but you know, these things build character, and mission trips are always, they always have the opportunity to stretch you and to grow you and to grow your patience. And the bottom of the line, the end of the story is this. The bottom line is this. Elijah, did we always get where we needed to go?
Yes.
Yes, we did. The Lord always provided. We always got to where we needed to go. And so that was a huge blessing. So let's switch gears now and talk about Vision Clinic. So this year, we actually had a student in charge of the optical. Normally, we have one of either Kazia or one of Brad's employees to do that. But this year, none of them were available. And so actually, Emmy Grace was our optical manager this year. And so Emmy Grace, tell us a little bit about Vision Clinic. How does Vision Clinic work? If a person comes to Vision Clinic, a patient, what would they expect?
Well, every day we would drive up in our bus, and normally there's like a pretty long line of people already waiting for us. So we go in, and in about like 15 to 20 minutes, we like set up the clinic. And so the patient would come in, and one of the translators would do this, but they have a little sheet of paper, and they write down the history. So like what their problems are, like my eyes itch, or I can't see, or whatever, and health issues, and their age and stuff. And so then after that, they would go to the autorefractor, which is just like a camera that reads their eyes kind of thing. And then they go to the visual acuity lines, which is like the classic E charts or the number charts to see how far they can read. And then they go to the doctor. The doctor gives a prescription, gives them a steps to Christ, and then they go to optical. And in optical, we would give them the actual glasses, fit them to their face, and make sure that they could see as clearly as they could out of them. And then after that, we had a gift booth. So they all got the personal care items that we collected back home here. And the kids would get a stuffed animal. And then an extra special part was we had a prayer booth. So every single patient that went through, if they were okay with it, got prayed for individually. So that was an extra special part that made it connect with God more. And so every person left with a pair of glasses, so their sight back, and a steps to Christ, a personal care item, and if they were a kid, a stuffed animal.
So we were very blessed to have really fantastic people working in Vision with us. We had Anne at the autorefractor this year, and she did fantastic readings, according to Brad. And then we had translators. We had Norjan and Philip and Cheryl as our translators, which was a huge blessing. And then all of the chaperone ladies had a turn at the prayer booth, which was just such a huge blessing. That's something that we began last year. Alicia Gallimore really helped us with that, and that became such a really neat thing that I wanted to incorporate that into our mission trips from here on out, because it was just a huge blessing to make sure that every person left with a prayer. And so in Vision Clinic, I'll just go ahead and tell you this instead of asking the kids, because I can tell you the numbers. We saw, over 6 days, because we had 6 Vision Clinics, we saw 832 patients, and we dispensed or gave away 979 pairs of glasses or sunglasses. So we saw a lot of people restoring sight to so many people. I think one of the things that I'm most proud of that we were able to do in that was not only to restore their sight, but hopefully their spiritual sight by praying with them, but also, as Emmy Grace alluded to or stated, every patient that came through, I mean, not babies, but most of the patients that came through received a steps to Christ. And so Brad would use that as he's giving their eye exam. He would hand them the steps to Christ and have them, can you read this? And so then he would say something about the book, like, this is one of my favorite books, and I hope that you're blessed by it, or I hope you'll read it, or whatever. And so we were able to pass out, probably, close to 800 or more steps to Christ. So some of you, now Jackson's not here with us this evening. Jackson was another member, and he spent a lot of time with us in Vision Clinic because he actually got sick on the trip. And so that was a place that he could go, and if he needed to take a rest, then he could a little bit more easily. And so he spent a lot of time there with us, and he's kind of like my assistant. He's an amazing kid who is really on top of things. And so he was really helpful in making sure that the visual acuity people were in line and knew what to do. But we also had some really interesting experiences. Where is Isaac? Not Isaac. No, it wasn't Isaac. It was Caden. That's who it was. Caden, tell me about Vision Restored. What's one thing that you personally witnessed about the older gentleman?
Yeah, there was an older gentleman. So it was when I first got there. It was the first one I did visual acuity with. It was super difficult because he could not see anything. And then I think it was like 2000 or something. And then later, I think I asked Dr. Brad what he saw after he got glasses and whatever. I think it was like 2040, which was pretty cool.
Which, if you have 20/20 vision, you might be like 20/40, but listen, if you started with 2100, that's huge. Emmy Grace, tell us about, we had an unusual patient, a mute. Tell us about that experience and what you witnessed with that.
So there was this older gentleman that came through, and he was sitting on the bench at optical waiting for the glasses. And so I go over and try to speak to him a little, and it was like blank face, and I was like, oh, I really can't speak Spanish. But then his wife is like, oh no, actually he's deaf. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And so then she's like, he's deaf, and he couldn't talk, and like pretty much blind practically. And so I got the prescription and was like putting it on and trying different things. And then I got one, and his like face like lit up, and he was like, like excited. And then he stood up, and then I heard someone yell his name, because there's their name on the paper. And I like turned around, and pretty much like to the back wall, it was a big room, and on the back wall there was a guy standing up waving at him. And my guy started like waving at him, and it was pretty much their friend that he could finally see. And it was so cute because there's like the two old guys like reconnected and could finally see each other. It was so fun.
So Vision Clinic really allows students to connect with people. And it's really fun for them to go, because this is an opportunity to interact with lots of different people and make new friends and test out their Spanish skills, which is fun, I think. It should be. But we also have some people who are very valuable to us, very, very valuable to us. Isaac and Emma and Santi, who are already bilingual, and just to be able to step in and work as a translator for us. And they worked closely with Emmy Grace in optical. And so that was really a great thing to watch these kids use the skill that otherwise they just used at home. But suddenly I think you can see the value of being bilingual. Isaac, you went and helped us. So tell a little bit about your experience there being a translator in Vision Clinic.
I had to translate at the vision acuity thing, and it was very hard to do because I'm not that good at Spanish. And
yes, he is. He's being humble. Go ahead.
I also had to, I had to help the mute guy. That was very hard. Very hard to do.
So your Spanish didn't do you much good in that particular situation, I guess. But in general, you had a really good experience with, just watching you interact. And Isaac has this big, warm smile that he gives the patients. And he just was such an asset. And Emma, tell us about your experience translating. How was that?
Yeah, it's definitely special to be able to understand the people and speak to them. And they get really confused when I start speaking to them because I don't look like I can speak Spanish. So yeah.
I bet that was fun. So, Santi, tell us though, what made translating, there was one more step in translating this year that even you couldn't necessarily fulfill. What made this trip extra challenging and sometimes time consuming with translating?
They spoke Guarani. So they spoke Spanish, but a lot of the people spoke like mainly Guarani, and they could understand Spanish, but they didn't speak it. So they'd just say a bunch of random stuff, and we had no idea what they were saying.
So when it had to go through a Spanish translator to a Guarani and back and forth it would go. So Brad would speak English to Spanish, to then that was translated to then Guarani, and then back and forth it went. So it certainly added an extra step to that. Santi, how did you feel being able to communicate with the people so easily?
It was pretty great. When we went to Dominican, I didn't really take advantage of that as much as I should have. But this year it was pretty nice because I actually started talking to all the people, and that was pretty fun.
And I know a lot of you tried out your Spanish, and I think that's fantastic. I know that made me really happy. I know Emmy Grace was like, I'm going to tell anyway. She was so excited. She's like, this is like the best day ever. I actually said a sentence to someone and they understood. So it was fun. It was fun to stretch those skills. So Lily Beth, will you tell us and share with us the story of the autorefractor? This is an integral part of the exam. This makes Brad's life much easier and helps things go a lot quicker because it gives a reading on what your prescription is close to. And then he can refine that, and it gives him an idea of how to help you. So the autorefractor is very important. But what happened to the autorefractor, Lily Beth?
Well, technically nothing happened to the autorefractor itself, but something happened to the charger. So at some point during the second to last day of vision clinic, the charger fell off the table or something, and it jarred it enough when it landed to mess up the electronics inside. And so my mom didn't notice, and so she kept using the autorefractor, and then 2 patients before the end, it just shut off. And they're like, okay, that's weird. And they couldn't get it to turn back on again, so then Dr. Brad did those last 2 manually, and it took way longer than it would have normally. And then he was saying he gets back to the hotel room and discovers that the autorefractor won't charge. And that charger is made specifically for medical instruments, and it can be hard to find in the States, let alone in Paraguay, in a small town in kind of the middle of almost nowhere. And so we realized that, we don't have a charger. We can't do the vision clinic for the last day without the autorefractor, or we can, but it'll take so much longer, and it cuts down the people that we can see drastically. And so he tells our translator about it, and she goes, oh, there's a guy that's kind of a more techie guy at your church where you do the VBS. And so they pray about it, and then we get to the VBS, we say a quick prayer, on the bus right before we go into the VBS service itself, which was, at that point, that was the first I'd heard of it. And he goes in, and then the tech guy just leaves, disappears unbeknownst to any of us, and 15 minutes later he comes back with a charger that is specific to that autorefractor and goes, hey, is this what you're looking for? And so it was just really a God thing, the timing, the speed with which they were able to find a charger, and the fact that they found a charger, and it was a correct one. So yeah.
Yes, I want to reemphasize what Lily Beth said. It's a hard thing to find even here in the United States. And literally, we are in a place called Curaguatu, which is very remote. The idea of a busload of Americans is not a common occurrence in that town. So anyway, the fact that they had that was just fantastic. We talked about the rain, and we talked about how we were so blessed that the rain would hold off for construction.
You're missing the point of that, though, because it was the next day that I saw 190 patients.
Okay, so
I didn't have to turn anybody away.
okay, let me repeat what Brad said. The next day, we saw 190 patients, and we didn't have to turn anyone away. Had we not had that, there's no way he would have been able to see that many patients, nor and we would have had to have turned people away. So that was such a huge blessing. So thank you. Abigail Wetmore. The rain ended up being a blessing one day, though, for us at Vision Clinic. Apparently they were not having this torrential downpour at construction, but at Vision we were. But why was that a good thing, Abigail?
Well, it was getting towards the end of the day, and we could only see so many patients, like, with the time we had. And so we were hoping that no more patients would come because we didn't want to turn anybody away. So yeah, like, we had the perfect amount of patients, like, waiting to be seen, and then it started raining. So it was kind of like a blessing because that meant nobody else would come that we would have to turn away. So yeah, we were able to see the perfect amount of people in the time frame that we had.
All in God's timing. And it is very hard to turn people away at Vision Clinic. So I was talking to Colin earlier today, and we were talking about his experience in Vision Clinic. And he's like, well, all I did was point, because we have the visual acuity charts. Colin, what lesson did we talk about, though, and learn in all I did was point?
Well, I learned that even though all it seemed like I was doing then was just pointing, but at the end I learned that it helped in the process of the big thing.
So the big picture, you have to have all of the small cogs to make the big cog work. And so every job is important on a mission trip, whether it's pointing, whether it's putting some mortar on, whether it's carrying, like Noah said, whether it's carrying the bucket of mortar. Every job's important because every job gets the bigger job accomplished. So it's so important that we realize in mission work, you're not always going to be the big John Bradshaw preacher. They're jobs that get the people to the finish line. And so I think it's fantastic that these kids are learning that. So does anybody have something that you would like to share from Vision Clinic before we move on? Something interesting that might have happened, something that made you happy, a story that you want to share from Vision Clinic? Okay, Lilybeth, go ahead.
So there was this one girl, and she came through, and she had the most beautiful hair clip I've ever seen. It was like a butterfly, and then it had like rhinestones on it, and then there was like pearls underneath. And I was like, that is so pretty. And so I asked Isaac, hey Isaac, will you tell her that I think her clip is really pretty? And he goes, no. What? And I'm like, okay. So I find the translator. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to throw you under the bus like that. But I find a translator, and she tells the girl that I think her hair clip is really pretty, and the girl immediately just takes down and gives it to me. I'm like, oh, no, it's okay. I didn't want to, like, take it. It's okay. She goes, no, it's for you. It's a souvenir from Paraguay, so you'll always remember us. And it was the sweetest thing, and I have it, and I wore it when I preached the sermon, and I've worn it a couple times since. So
we find the people on mission trips, and Paraguay was no different, so welcoming, so warm, so giving, so generous. They were just so thankful for everything that we were trying to do for them. Okay, if you have a microphone, I want you to tell what your favorite thing was about mission trip. Not mission trip, about Vision Clinic. What's one thing that you really liked about Vision Clinic? And I'm going to let Marcus hold this one. Okay, starting with you.
I think it was really cool to see the whenever after they go through and they might not be able to see very well, then once they go through, you get to see the reaction of, oh wow, I can see really well now with the new glasses.
I think the same thing Marcus said.
yeah, the reactions of the people. There was this one time where I was helping this lady, and she was an elderly lady. I don't think she could see very well. And we put the glasses on her, and she holds up her book to see, and she's like, "Oh, I can see, but all I see are these little spots everywhere." And I was like, "Spots? That doesn't make sense." And so I tried to like clean the glasses, and she's like, "No, there are still spots." And then I was like, "But is the page clear?" And she's like, "Yes, but I see all these spots on my skin." And it's because she had sunspots, and it was the first time she saw them in her life. So, yeah, I felt really bad. But it was the interactions with the people was the best part.
Caden, what was something that you enjoyed from?
Meeting new people.
Yes, meeting new people. Kaylee, what about you?
I did the autorefractor a lot with Miss Ann, so I was her scribe. I would write down whatever the reading was. And there was this specific instance when we got to do it on a baby, and it took a long time to get him to focus on the autorefractor enough to get a reading, but it was so fun because we got to like dangle toys in front of him, and it was just so cute. I loved it.
Probably my favorite part was the prayer booth. I worked with the pastor's wife, Nicole, and like Miss MD said, it's a process. And because a lot of the people there are Catholic, they repeat all the prayers back to you. So it was like four prayers. So like we would pray, and then it'd be translated to Spanish, and then Guarani, and then they would say it, and then we'd start all over again, and we'd pray, and then Spanish, and then Guarani, and then they'd repeat it. So it was neat praying with them, but it was a long time for one prayer. And then I also got to organize the stuff for like the gifts and things, which was fun. So yeah, praying, and then just seeing the people start like crying, and also this isn't necessarily, I don't know, this happened I think to Miss Jennifer, where someone came in asking for prayer for their daughter, and that they would come back to like the church, or that they would know God, and then later on the daughter came in asking that she be able to know God better. So not like they didn't see each other there, but they both came in asking for the same thing, which is really neat.
So we pray that their prayers will be answered. Lily Beth, I know that you had finally something happened.
I finally got to see those like reactions that everybody talks about in optical, because like I didn't do optical for the first 2 years of mission trip, and then the last year in Kenya, I don't know what it was. I tried to be energetic, but nobody was like particularly happy. And it was okay. But like this year, I actually got to see like one guy. He came in like pretty stone faced, and I gave him his glasses. And as soon as he looked up and around the room, he just shouted for joy, and it was the sweetest thing ever. And so there were a couple of reactions like that, and so it was so much fun.
Does anyone have anything else you'd like to share from Vision Clinic before we move on? Noah wants to share.
I learned that the way you say water in Guarani is
There you go. I think that's, and if we were at a school and, what was it, water is they had the toilet sign for the water.
Water
Anyway,
is toilet.
Water
So.
is toilet, yes, in that particular language at that particular school. Anyway, anybody else have something interesting that you learned at Vision Clinic, or an experience that you want to share? So another thing that we participated in were VBS and a revival series. We went to 2 different locations. One of the locations that we did a Vacation Bible School at was where we were actually building the church. And that was about, like one of the students said, about a 25 to 30-minute drive or so. And then the other place that we went was there near the hotel. It was, as Elijah said a moment ago, we could walk to it if we had to, which we did have to on one occasion. And at that site, that's their main church there in town, and they have a school there as well. And we were doing VBS, and we were doing the revival series there simultaneously. And so let's talk a little bit about the VBS experience. Emma, you've got a microphone. Tell us about the skits. Tell us about what you guys did at Vacation Bible School involving the skits.
Yeah, so we didn't really actually have a lot of time to practice the skits. We just practiced them on like the 20-minute drives to the location. and they all turn out really great.
And what were the skits about?
Bible stories that most kids know. We used a mango in each of our skits as a prop. As something. It was either like an idol or the Holy Spirit or anything. Yeah.
Used what as the prop?
A mango.
Okay. I didn't go to there, so that's funny. That's news to me. Okay, very good. So, Kaylee, Elliott, tell us about the surprise of how things kind of worked out.
So before going on the mission trip, we knew that there were going to be 2 different VBSs, one big one and one small one, and so logically, Miss Angela made 2 different groups, a big group and a small group, to go to the different VBSs. And so I was part of the small group. It was me, Santi, Emma, Noah, Elijah, and Jackson. And so it was just us and 3 chaperones. And we're like, we were told that we were only going to have like 13, 15 kids. And then we go there and there's like 30. And we ended up having a much bigger VBS than the other one, and so we had to get some of their supplies and, take some of their guitarists occasionally. And so it was, by the end of the week, we had 42 kids, and it was just a lot bigger than we imagined, and the church was overflowing every single night with kids, and it was just amazing.
And what a huge blessing that is, because the church itself does not have that many kids. That's why we were told, it would be a smaller group of children attending, because it's not a very big church. But praise the Lord, and we just hope and pray that the seeds we planted there, that those kids will want to continue to come back to church there. And I just think that's fantastic. So yeah, it was a surprise. It ended up, the one in town actually was smaller. Now, we grew. Every night we grew. And so we had, I don't even remember what our numbers were, but it was nowhere close to the small one. So it was just fun to see how things worked out and to see the different VBSs, both of them growing in size. And so what does a VBS look like? Abigail Whitmore, why don't you tell us, what do we do at VBS?
We usually start out by singing a few songs, and then one of the students will have like a health talk, and then we'll sing again, and then another one of us will give a nature nugget, and then we'll sing another song, and then somebody else will give the Bible story for that night, and then we sing, and then we do a craft.
Which is always a big deal, a craft. But Tucker, we had something else special that happened. For some groups for one group it was on Wednesday, and for another group it was on Thursday night. What was the special thing that Coach helped us with?
He made animals out of balloons.
And tell me how the kids reacted to that.
They were extremely excited, like they've never seen something like that before.
There's a picture on the screen, and you may or may not see it, but one little girl's face, if you see one little cute girl with dark hair, and I think she's got a red dress on, and she's going, I don't think her eyes and mouth could get any bigger when she saw Coach shaping a balloon into either a dog or a flower or a sword, whatever it was that he was making that evening. So that was super fun that we did that with the kids. So raise your hand if you helped with song service. And a special shout out to my guitarists, Noah, Lily Beth, Elijah, and Marcus. Raise your hand if you helped give a health talk. Raise your hand if you did a nature nugget. Raise your hand if you told or at least helped participate in the Bible story in some shape or form. And if you help with the craft. So the kids are very involved with this. This is not a chaperone-led Vacation Bible School. It's definitely a student-led Vacation Bible School, and I'm so proud of these kids for taking the leadership roles in doing that. They're just fantastic. Emmy Grace, tell us about the theme song.
The theme song, I think in English it's When Heaven Came Down. Is that the name of it?
I don't
I think. Well, anyway, it's a hymn that we sing every night with the adults and the VBS kids as well. And as the week went on, like, the kids started to learn it more. So at the beginning, we were like teaching them. It was in Spanish though. And then by the end, they were all singing with us. And like the last night, it's really sad because you get really connected to the kids and like the adults too, but especially every night with the VBS kids. And so the last night, you know that this is like goodbye. And every mission trip, I always think about like in heaven seeing like the kids again. And it just made me like when it was talking about like when heaven came down and glory filled my soul and stuff. I was just thinking like in heaven, I don't know if I'm going to recognize all of the people that we saw on the mission trip or the kids and stuff, but I was just like picturing in my mind everyone singing that song and then like remembering like the kids and those moments and like the VBS, and maybe the VBSs brought them closer to Jesus and to heaven someday. And so I was just like, heaven really came down in my life or in this mission trip, and it was just a really special song for me.
So while we were doing Vacation Bible School, we also had a sermon series, as I've already alluded to, that the seniors had written, and it was based on the book Steps to Christ. And we had a 6-night sermon series based on that. And so each of the seniors and junior wrote a sermon that they presented. Again, if you were one of those presenters, raise your hand. Okay, so how did that feel to preach? Elijah, I know that you actually preached twice. Elijah preached at church on Sabbath, but he also preached in a sermon series. It was going to be English, then Spanish, then English, then Spanish. Tell us the story on that, and how did that work out, Elijah?
So, originally, when I was making the sermon for the revival series, you know, most of us do it in English because that's what we know and we have it translated. Well, I've been learning a bit more Spanish and was getting a little bit, learning enough to where I thought, I really want to present in Spanish. I think it'd be really fun. Well, after I had started the process, I realized that I wasn't able to emphasize things the way I wanted to with pronunciation, and I was stumbling, and I'm like, I'm never going to get this right. It was like 10 pages of Spanish I had to practice and present.
And he and Santi faithfully worked on that because Santi helped him translate it into Spanish. And in free time at school, for the time before we went on the mission trip, those two boys would be working with his delivery.
So yeah, thank you, Santi, for helping me with that. But we worked on and off, and then like the night before the sermon, I'm like, this is not where I want it to be. I don't know if I can present it and, you know, carry the same weight with it that I wanted to. And so I talked to Mr. Mitchell, and he's like, well, let's do it one more time with me and Maciel, our Maranatha person, and we'll just see how it goes and if we need to work on something. And so we did, and they thought it was really good, so I went ahead and presented it in Spanish, and God blessed.
In fact, tell us what they came up to you and asked for after your sermon.
Now, this was pretty crazy. So afterwards, some guys are talking, and they're complimenting me on my sermon, and they were like, we really want to use the sermon in other places and preach it at other churches and other events. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. And so we left them my copy. We took pictures of it. It had been edited a little bit. And so they were able to use it in other places around the area. So that was pretty neat.
A real blessing. And if you guys, a little shout out for something that's coming up later on at the end of March, the 1st of April. We actually are having a student-led revival series at GAA again, and the students who preached in Paraguay, if you're curious about their sermons, they will be preaching the same sermon series that they preached in Paraguay, the Steps to Christ. So we hope that you can plan to attend that as well. But before we leave the topic of Vacation Bible School or Revival Series, does anyone have something that you would like to share, maybe an experience or a special memory from that? Noah?
Caden was incredibly good at making friends.
Yes, he was. And as a lot of you were, I was so proud that many of you made so many friends.
Specifically females.
Okay. Yes. It's true. There we go. We addressed that issue. Yes. Girls liked Caden. So, anyhow. So, let's see. How do I recover from that one? Let's talk about Vacation Bible School specifically. A memory from Vacation Bible School. Who has something from that or from the revival series that you would like to share? Something maybe special that happened.
So one night, before we started and all the kids were coming, a lot of the boys in our group would play soccer with some of the older boys for the VBS, and I thought that was fun. But one night, I think it was Abigail and Emma, not Emma, you were Emma. Anyway, we were playing with this tiny little boy with a football. It was the cutest thing because Tucker always brings his football on every trip, and I was like, can I please borrow it? And so we were just like, he was like that tall, and like the football was like half the size of him, and so we were trying to like throw it to him, and so we're like, okay, catch it like this kind of thing, and so it would fit like his like that big compared to him, and he would just like grab it. And he was so proud of himself, and he would laugh and stuff, and by the end of it, we just made a little triangle, and we like threw it back and forth, and it was so cute. And so then after we were singing song service, and we noticed that he had brought a tiny little guitar with him, and it was the cutest thing. And so he came and like stood by Marcus and would like strum, and a lot of the times he was actually on beat, so I was like, that's probably an accident, but it was still impressive. And it was just so cute because he was just like so proud of himself, and like he could be a little leader someday too, so it was just fun.
That does have to be one of the cutest things I have ever seen. And he would do the motions of the songs with his guitar. He was adorable. But anyway, yes, anybody else have something that you'd like to share from, yeah, I wanted to say, iconic football, Tucker's football, traveling the world. That's iconic, and Jackson's hat, his Indiana Jones hat. So those are the two hugely iconic things. Tucker feels like, as I don't blame you, teaching the world one mission trip at a time about what football really is, right? And so the football comes. Forget the whole soccer ball thing. Tucker's like, this is American sport right here. So anyway, but does anyone else have something that they'd like to add about VBS? So let's talk about our Sabbath experiences. We've already mentioned the fact that the first Sabbath, Elijah preached, and that was a real blessing. He had gone to Cuba over Thanksgiving, and this was a sermon that you had given in Cuba, actually, and it was a beautiful sermon, so we thank you for that. But then the rest of you also participated in the program. How did you participate in the program? Santi, what was, pass the microphone down to Santi. What did you guys as a group do?
Oh, we sang, Miss San had us practice some songs to sing during the service. So we sang, and then Coach had his band play some songs, so that was cool.
So we were able to bless people with music, and that's always very special to be able to go and share in a different way. We have words and we have crafts, but it's fun to share songs as well. The second Sabbath that we were there, both Sabbaths we worshiped at the church that we were building, and it was outdoors because the first Sabbath, as we noted, there was just one row of block, but by the second Sabbath, the walls were up, and lovely windows, though, that the air could still get through. But tell me what happened at the farewell Sabbath service. What was it that they gave you guys? Noah, what was it that they gave us? Do you remember?
They gave one of the women all week just like hand wove.
Well, I'm going to correct you. She personally didn't hand make them, but someone might have. But go ahead.
Anyway, she made like placemats out of the like Paraguayan flag kind of pattern.
and of the Kiriguatu. Apparently the towns all have flags, which is really neat too. So some people got the town flag, some people got the flag from Paraguay. So that was really neat. Then we had something special. Kenny, what special thing did your grandmother give that church?
The felt set, yeah.
And most of you are familiar with the whole entire Bible story felt set. Cheryl felt very impressed that she wanted to bring something to the Sabbath school there for the church to use. And so I reached out to a Maranatha worker who reached out to the pastor to say, what type of supplies do you have for Sabbath school? You know, if you go into any of our Sabbath school program classrooms here, we have just closets and closets full of things for the kids. And so when asked what kind of supplies they have, the answer was, we really don't have anything. And so Cheryl wanted to bring felts, and so she brought an entire felt set to the people that she had lovingly cut out and had placed all the pieces on the sticky boards. And so it was such a blessing, and they were so excited to receive the felts, and she was able to teach the Sabbath school leader how to use the felts and the book that went with it, and then they have a thumb drive that the main preacher was going to take, and you can have coloring sheets made. And so it was just a huge resource and a huge blessing to this church. And so it was just such a fun time to be with those people. And I felt like we really connected with the church people and the Maranatha workers. Somebody tell me about actually Kaylee Elliott, will you do this? Because I know you and I talked about it. How many churches did the pastor and his wife have?
He had 17 different churches.
What was that number again?
17.
17. He had 17 churches that he and his wife pastored and shepherded, and he was an amazing, amazing man. So let's talk a little bit about something fun. Let's talk about the food. Kenny, tell us about the food.
It was very good.
Okay, and so I know, Santi, you also interacted some with the people that made our food. Tell us about them.
They're just like a really nice old couple, and like, what was it, their daughter or something? Daughter-in-law.
That really old couple was actually my age, a couple of years older than me, but anyway, just saying. Okay, moving on, Santi, yes?
Didn't mean it like that, but so usually food's like, yeah, it's really good, but you never think of the people who make it. It's usually not like a big deal or whatever, but they made us food, and they used it like as a ministry. So they wanted to show God's love through their food, and they really wanted us to like feel welcome and enjoy the food, and so that was really nice.
So they were an Adventist couple that actually were from, now I can't remember, was it Peru or Bolivia? Okay, they were from Bolivia. And so they work with Maranatha sometimes, and they were just so amazing. And they came through the Vision Clinic, and when they got to the prayer booth and they were asked, I think maybe Jennifer was the one that was asked them what their prayer requests were so she could pray for them. And their prayer request was that they could make us food that wouldn't make us sick, and they just wanted us to have a good experience with the food. And they were just precious, and they did make incredibly, incredibly good food. I know the kids were huge, and the chaperones were hugely blessed by the delicious meals that we ate there. So let's talk about excursions, because we work hard. I've already told you how hard we worked. I mean, sun up till sundown, and very, very, very little downtime at all during the day. But then if you go to a foreign country, you've got to see some things, right? And so while we were there in Paraguay, we took a day off from the general work, and we did something really neat. Marcus, tell us about the hike that we went to in Paraguay.
It was really nice. It was pretty fun to go see. It was a pretty big waterfall with, I guess you'd say, a shelf came down, I guess you'd say 100 or so feet, and then, a little bit of a flat spot and then another bit. And to get down, you had to go down a muddy hill that was pretty fun to watch people try and go up and down.
Marcus is a billy goat when it comes to hiking, and so he didn't necessarily have to do this, but what did everybody else have to do to get down to the bottom to see that?
Use a rope.
So we had a tour guide. You can't go into this waterfall without a tour guide. And so he had to, I mean, we're talking very, very steep, slippery, because it had previously rained, slippery mountainside to get down to the waterfall. And so that was really a neat experience to see this incredibly, what we thought at the time, incredibly large waterfall. But then, after our work was done at Curaguatu, we then traveled on to see Iguazu Falls. And Iguazu Falls is like the Victoria Falls of South America. It's huge. As my husband described it, you take all of the waterfalls of America, of North America, and you put them all together, and I think you would even say times 5 or 10, and that's what you're going to have. But it was just a tremendous amount of water. So tell us about the waterfall experience. I know that we first went into Argentina. What did we do in, Brazil. We went into Brazil first. Somebody with a microphone or somebody near a microphone, tell us what we did the first day. It was Sunday that we saw Iguazu Falls. Tell everyone what we did. Kaylee?
So in Brazil, we went on this like paved trail, and you go down some stairs and walk a little bit, and then goes down some more stairs and walk a little bit, and then we got. At first there was this overlook and you could see some of the waterfall. Like, oh wow, that's really big. And then farther down the trail, it was like, oh my word, it's even bigger. And so each time the trees would open up and you'd get a bigger view, the falls would be bigger and bigger. And just every single time you would turn, there's just another section of waterfall. It was crazy.
And there were more temptations along that trail.
There were a lot of coatis.
That we were not supposed to touch.
But I did it anyways.
Yeah.
So lots of coati around, which are really cute little animals, and they're used to tourists, and so they want to follow you because they're hoping that they will give you some food or to slash open your hand, like the pictures were warning the students of. So I was having to constantly do coati duty. Don't touch the coati. Don't. I see you. So anyway, they were very tempting to touch. But at any rate, we saw a lot of fun wildlife in that. So then the next day we go into Iguazu Falls on the Brazil side. Now that
Argentina.
was also a growing experience with patience and character development, because it's a long story that I won't bore you with, but it took us a long time to actually get into the falls due to money issues. We had it, it's just they didn't want what we had. Anyhow, so we finally got into the Argentina side, and then Isaac, you made a statement. You said, this was the coolest thing I have ever done. What surprise did you guys have on the Argentina side that we did?
We took a boat ride.
Well, okay, I've been on a boat ride. What makes that pretty cool?
Like next to the waterfall.
You mean like
Under
the
the
waterfalls
waterfall.
that were pouring down massive amounts of water?
Yes.
Yes. So it was really fun. Somebody else elaborate on that for me. Noah's going to elaborate.
They were really big and the rapids were crazy. So like there was always like huge splashes of water on each side. Well, when we get to one of the corners of the waterfall, we go past one and then we come back into a little section over here where it's just a straight line of waterfalls, but there's no rocks under it. And so we made a joke like we should go under it. Well, we actually did go under it. The guys were just like suiting up in these big rain jackets, and we're like, what is about to happen? And he's like, a minute-long shower. It felt like a minute long because you can't breathe for like 10 seconds with like lots of water just pounding on top of you. You feel like you can't breathe. And so we go under this thing, and then we're just like, it was pretty cool. It was, wow. It was just, yeah, we did it like twice.
Kenny?
We didn't go under the waterfall, otherwise we would have probably died, but it was a miss, but it was still a ton of fun.
We went right up to the edge of it, and water pounded down on us, and it was one of the more minor waterfalls. There's one called the Devil's Throat that there's no way you could get close to it, or you would definitely drown. But these were some of the smaller ones that we had gone right up to, and the water just pounded in on us, and they were like, "Don't drink the water," and so we're like, and some people at the end are like going, spitting out the water. It was so neat and so fun and so massive. Any other reflections on the waterfall experience that we had?
I drank the water.
And he lived to tell about it. So, does anybody else have anything to add about the excursions that you would like to add? Anybody have something that you'd like to say about Argentina, Brazil? Caden?
The first excursion we went on, Wednesday, there was a spider that big.
That's right. There was a huge spider that about 3 boys who will remain unnamed did not want to go past. And so they did not go wading in the water because there was a spider about yay big that was on a rock that they did not want to pass. So that was some incredible wildlife as well. Anybody else have a story that you would like to share? Lilybeth.
I was told after the trip that some unknown source would have paid $40 to an unknown boy to throw the spider at me.
Well, we're glad that did not actually happen. So, Kenny, you've got the microphone. I want you to tell me what made this trip extra special for you and your brother.
My grandma got to come.
Oh, grandmother got to come. Now, tell us a little bit, though, Kenny, what made this special for your grandmother? Yes, it's true. It's really neat that she could come with you. We had another grandparent come. Lucia came, to Noah's grandmother, and that was sweet. But what made this one a little bit different?
She grew up there. I think they moved there when she was around 1 or 2, and she was there till she was 15. Her dad started the Adventist hospital there.
So Miss Cheryl grew up there as a missionary's kid. And so that's how she knows Spanish and how she was able to translate for us at VBS and Vision Clinic because she had grown up there. So that was a really, I think, another full circle moment where she got to go back and where she had grown up and bring her grandchildren. How fantastic is that? Colin, at the airport, though, she met a friend. Tell us what was special about the friend that you met of your grandmother's.
She grew up with her.
So this was your grandmother's what?
Best friend.
Thank you. Best friend. It was Cheryl's best friend. How neat is that she was able to see her best friend? So that was really fun and exciting. Abigail Dean, tell us, you had some really good interactions with the Maranatha workers. Tell us about that.
Well, one of the Sabbaths, I forgot if it was the first or second, we went on a walk and through one of the parks and near our hotel. And on the way back, Maciel and I got to talk for a while behind the group. And she was just telling me about how she became an Adventist. She, I think, grew up Adventist, but she started doing online English lessons for people, and she was starting to make a ton of money on doing it on TikTok and different stuff. And so she she kind of drifted away from God and started using her money and spending it, squandering it. And she was telling me she was buying things she didn't need and stuff. And so she was when God told me that she needed to start using her money for God, and she wasn't paying her tithe, and so she started paying tithe and spending more time with her family and with God. And so it was really encouraging to me just talk to her, and some of the experiences she shared with me were similar to some things I had experienced, not exactly the money thing, but other things. And so it was really neat, and just knowing that there are other people out there with the same struggles. And also, she works for Maranatha, and I want to be a missionary, so her telling me how she became like working with Maranatha and how they got in touch with her. They actually asked her to work for them. So they had been observing how she worked with people. So if that tells you anything, she's a really sweet lady. So with Maciel and then also with Jacqueline, so that was really sweet.
Thank you. Noah, tell us, you were able to take something, well, two things. You were able to take your grandmother, and you were able to take something else that made the trip fun for you.
I took my GoPro with me.
And so Noah was able to capture some really incredible moments with his GoPro. Tell us about how special it was to be on this trip with your grandmother, though.
Well, it was pretty cool considering that it wasn't her first one. She had done this before with my mom and my uncle, so it was pretty cool. Now she just kind of went with the flow and didn't worry about anything.
And I have to tell you, it was so cute and sweet. Noah would be like always on the lookout for his grandmother and always making sure, calling to her across the grounds or throwing his arm around her, wanting to take a selfie with her. And it was just, I loved watching Noah and his grandmother together. It just was a sweet, sweet thing to see. And Lucia was like, he's my boy. He's my boy. So that was clearly obvious that that's a really sweet, special relationship. Caden, you made an interesting statement to me, or in a writing assignment, about vacation versus mission trip. Tell us about your thoughts on that.
Like, all the other years people gone on the mission trip, they always say it was better than vacations they've been on. I never believed them, but I realize it is true.
So you never believed that, huh? But now you see that going on a mission trip is an amazing experience, and I'm really happy that you had that experience. Isaac, I want you to tell us a story, and I'm going to set it up for you. Here's the question. How does a broken door and a clogged toilet bring somebody to church? Tell us the story.
So the second day I was there, it was me, Jackson, Caden, Colin, Tucker. We were all sitting outside, and the night before, our door broke, and
the door to the bathroom.
The door to the bathroom, and the hotel owner's son, his name was Joaquin. He came to fix it, but I had to warn him in Spanish that Colin was taking a shower. And so he sat there waiting for like 10 minutes, and we had conversation, and then he left to, I think, make the door smaller so it would fit better. And when he came back, I had to stop him again because Caden was using the bathroom. And Caden came out, and he said the toilet was clogged. So he had to call his brother to get a plunger, and finally, after like an hour.
Well, we don't have to have all these details, but the punchline is you spent a long time with Joaquin. Okay, so keep going.
He made friends with most of the people and came to church the last day.
So, Isaac, through this situation and the fact that you're bilingual, because you can speak Spanish much better than you give yourself credit for, and all this time that you guys were having to wait, you guys were doing what with Joaquin? You were having conversation. And you actually became, by the end of the week, you guys had become friends with the hotel owner's two sons. And so, friendship evangelism. By the end of the week, it was only natural. When they were asked if they wanted to go to church with us, they had been friends with these guys. And it wasn't just Isaac. Santi had a lot of conversations with them as well, and several of the guys did. I would walk by, and I would see several of our guys engaging them, and apparently that was really special to them. I thought, well, these kids are older. They are like in their 20s. But the hotel owner, she had expressed how much she appreciated our students being nice to her sons, which I thought was kind of an interesting thing, because I would have thought it would be vice versa, because her sons are the older ones and they're being nice to our kids. But it was really important to them, and they felt special because our kids reached out to them and tried to make conversation with them, and so they became friends. And so I just think that's a beautiful testimony to what friendship can do. By the end of the week, it was only natural that they would invite them to church and that they would come. We did have an injury along the way. Joshua got his knee hurt on construction site, and that put him down for a day or two, but I know that several of you worked with him in Vision Clinic. He went to Vision Clinic and helped us there, and he was a huge blessing there for us. Tucker, you made a statement. God is mighty, and he will never be defeated. How can you tie in this idea of, Joshua got hurt, but yet it didn't keep him down? God is mighty, and he will never be defeated. How do you think that statement that you said earlier can tie into our experience there on the mission trip?
Everything just seemed to work out. I mean, it all went smoothly, and it's just, even with Joshua getting hurt, he still got to go to Vision Clinic and do a lot there.
So Satan couldn't keep him down. Satan couldn't keep you guys down, because God is mighty and he will never be defeated. I love those words that Tucker said. I want you guys now to think, is there anything else that you would like to share from your experience, a story or something that you need to say before we start to wrap things up tonight? Noah.
Kenny had an interesting bathroom jail.
Okay, maybe we'll not tell that story, but okay, somebody else have something.
Well, I mean, the door on the lock broke, and I was just...
okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, well, let's tell that story then. Let's clarify then. Kenny, what did he mean by the bathroom was a jail then?
So, I mean, I tried to be Elijah's, like, I would take a shower. I was like, so I ran in there, locked the door, used the bathroom, and I couldn't get out. I was like, Marcus, stop blocking the door. I was like, because he'd done this before, and it's like, I tried to unlock it, and they're like dying laughing, and I was like, there for like 2 minutes just shaking the door. I was like, Marcus, stop. I thought they put something, but the lock broke, and somehow it came off like the rail, and it was just stuck, and I couldn't open the door. I was stuck there for like, Marcus tried for 20 minutes or so to get it open and out, but we couldn't, and then Joaquin came, and he just like whacked the doorway, I guess, until it just opened, but it's like there like an hour and 20 minutes.
Okay, so the bathroom really was a jail. Okay, I'd forgotten about that, but yes, I remember that story now. Anybody else? Abigail.
The pastor's wife was like so selfless. Like, even though she wasn't feeling well, she was still like out there praying for people, even though it was like she had not slept well like the night before, and she was super tired, and between like people, like patients, she would like have to like rest her head on the table, but then as soon as it came, she'd have this big smile on her face, and she'd be praying for them, and it was just really touching to see her like working, and also it's really cool that meet someone with curly hair like me, so that was nice.
She had Abigail's hair. The pastor and his wife, I have to say, even though most of you will never have the opportunity to meet them, had the vision of what the right hand of the gospel is. We've been on other mission trips, and the pastors occasionally will make an appearance, but this particular pastor, he was there every day at Vision Clinic. Every night he was at Vacation Bible School. His wife was at the other Vacation Bible School. They loved their church people. They wanted to grow. They understood the importance of making that connection with your community to draw people in to learn more about the love of God. It was they're a fantastic team. They've only been married 5 months, and they're just adorable. And Nicole, his wife, has got to be one of the most adorable. I would just pack her up and take her home if I could. She's so cute and so sweet and so funny. Oh, well, hello, if they're watching right now. That's exciting, because we love them both. They are such an amazing, amazing couple. So I want you now, everybody's going to have a chance to speak one last time, and I want you to tell one or two things. I want you to tell either or and what your favorite part of the trip was and how you were blessed. How did you see God? So I want to start with Lily Beth, and we'll just work our way down. So a favorite part of the trip and how you were blessed.
My favorite part was either giving the people glasses or going like under or right up next to the waterfall and getting sprayed, because that was really cool. But I saw God in the people who were like so thankful and so grateful to us for giving the glasses and being patient with my very bad Spanish. Yeah, they were very nice and very patient and very understanding, and they definitely helped me improve my conversation.
Probably the boat ride was probably my favorite thing, and the way I saw God the most was probably with all the different circumstances, like the bus rides, they always breaking down, and all the other stuff.
And how we were rescued from those situations. Thank you. Elijah?
I have several things. I think for me, ways I was blessed, I saw God. Also, kind of some of my favorite things. I was able to preach in Spanish, and other people were able to use it. And Iguazu Falls was really cool to see. Also, one little tidbit I really made me happy. Me and Isaac were laying bricks one day, and we had laid, out of the 10 bricks we were able to lay that day, we had laid one perfect brick where we put it in, and it was just good, you know. And we didn't have to tap it, we didn't have to push it and pull it and relay it. It was just good, and it was like really satisfying. And we got one good brick in that day, so that was pretty fun.
My favorite part of the mission trip, I know people already said this, but was definitely the motorboat. Surprisingly, the day before, I actually was talking with Kaylee, we're like, we are coming back, and we are going to ride one of those motorboats. And we were like, that has got to be, like, that was number one on our bucket list when we had money for it. And the next day, Miss Cindy's like, surprise, we're going on the motorboats. I was like, oh, that's cool. So that was nearly neat. But what I really saw God, I already said, was through Maciel and like the Maranatha workers. They were so giving, like they were always there, like ready to like help us make our stay nice and easy, and finding all these really cool things for us to see and do, and on our mission trip. So through them, and then like the pastor and his wife.
So throughout the mission trip, every single day I would look forward to VBS, because the kids were all so really cute, and I just loved being around them, and it was amazing. Another thing was Iguazu Falls. I also got a huge blessing out of that, because, I mean, you can't show in pictures or describe in words how amazing and beautiful and wonderful that place is. And so just during the boat ride and while we were on the walkways and boardwalks, I was like, man, this is what heaven's going to look like, and I can't wait until we get to see that, and we're not going to be stopped by boardways and railings, and we can just not worry about drowning.
And teachers saying, do not touch that karate, Kaylee.
It touched me first.
My favorite thing was probably construction and getting all those thumbs up. That was just awesome. But also, the construction workers were also very spiritually impactful to me, because they were just so nice like the whole time.
Probably my favorite part, or no, the part I was blessed by was, well, I did vision clinic for the first time on Friday, and I met this little 4-year-old girl named Camila. And after that, I played football with her. Like, I had my little tiny orange football or whatever, it's about the big as my hand, and I'd throw it with her. And after that, if she saw me before I did, she'd run over to me and grab my leg and would not let go. So I was like literally walking with her around on my leg. My favorite part was probably when I brought my GoPro and got some pretty cool shots and pretty cool memories out of that.
I liked hanging out with the people there. It was really cool to learn new stuff, like Paraguay and stuff. like mate. It's like a drink over there. It's a bunch of crushed up leaves that you drink through a filtered straw. And I also learned like a cool handshake, but I'm not gonna do it.
I liked playing soccer. Like the first Saturday night we were there, we played soccer. That was probably one of my favorite things. And Iguazu Falls. And I thought the auto thing they had, like to check the eye, auto refractor. I thought like with the charger was very good. With like you could see God a lot through that.
I think my favorite part was probably Vision Clinic and also the boat ride, which was really fun. I saw God through nature because there were so many different exotic birds and mammals that we don't have in America that was really cool to see them. Like, for instance, we saw a toucan in real life, which was really cool.
My favorite parts were the VBSs with the skits and also nights in the room with Emmy Grace where there were a lot of really weird sounds and bugs that that was really fun.
My favorite part was definitely hanging out with the guys like in the hotel. We just sit outside at night and just talk, and it was really cool. And probably the most spiritually impactful thing was the people, because they're like really, really nice. Probably the nicest people I've ever met, and yeah, that was just really cool.
I think my favorite part was Iguazu Falls. I mean, there's nothing really like that. And the most spiritually impactful thing was probably seeing like the reaction of people's faces when they get glasses, and that we could actually be there and help people.
I think that working on construction is pretty cool, and seeing the transformation from when it's just a foundation, a layer of block, and a frame for a roof. And then I think seeing the landscape and the falls, Iguazu Falls, was pretty cool too.
I loved the nature, and also it was fun because my sermon was actually about like nature and God's love for man through nature. So it really connected it for me, like seeing Iguazu Falls to just the tropical flowers and like the flowers along the ditch line and stuff. And there were just a lot of quotes from my sermon from Steps to Christ about nature that really like just came alive through the trip. It was just so beautiful there. And also the people I really saw God through because they were just so giving and loving, and I just felt like I made a lot of connections that were really good.
Thank you. Anything else anyone wants to say? So before we conclude tonight, I need to thank a few people. And first off, I want to start by, even though they're not here, I want to start by thanking Maranatha. They have an incredible team, many of which I've never even met. Lissandro Stout, for one. He always helps me plan these trips and gets the ball rolling, but I've never actually met him, but he must be a great guy. But we had the honor and the privilege this year of I had the honor and privilege of actually meeting the lady that I worked with. Oftentimes, someone helps me plan the trip, but I don't actually ever meet them. But one of our workers, her name is Maciel, and another one, Jacqueline, that Lily Beth talked about. But Maciel helped me plan this trip, and I asked probably 1,002 questions before we even, stepped foot in Paraguay. And she always faithfully and quickly, which is also important to me, answered my questions. And she always would research things out well for me, and she helped plan just the most spectacular trip. And details. She had all the details worked out. And she and Jacqueline had to be some of the most pleasant people that I've ever been around. They always were patient and kind and happy and always smiles and always just the picture of Jesus. And I appreciate them so much. I'd like to also thank ASDEO, which is the Adventist Association of Seventh-day Adventist Optometrists. And ASDEO, as they have traditionally for all of our mission trips, they've donated $500 to the students who are raising money, and I don't mean in total, I mean 500, 500, 500, 500. Each of the kids raising money, they donated $500 to. They also help with the glasses. Eastview Eye Care provides some of the glasses, as does Asdeo. And so a big thank you to Asdeo and to Eastview Eye Care for donating the glasses for this trip. Also some behind the scene workers. Sabrina and Jackie worked at the office getting lots of lenses ground and put in frames and bagged up for us. So really excited about that, and excited that hopefully Sabrina is going to be back with us on next year's mission trip so she can run the optical, since Emmy Grace is going to be graduating and can't do that for us. I'd like to thank my husband, who faithfully helps me in all of this, and he's the guy who, we get back, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, we've just made sure everybody's delivered, and we're back home from the mission trip, and we lay down in bed, and I'm like, you know what, Brad, I think a really great place to go next year would be. And so he has to listen to all of my plans and my thoughts on mission trip all year long. And so I just appreciate all the support that he gives me, and all the help with the classes, and for helping us run what I consider to be an important part of our mission trips. As you guys know, we always have 3 aspects. We always do construction, evangelism, and a vision clinic. And I think having a vision clinic is such a fantastic way to get into the community, for the kids to experience the people, the community, but also to provide the churches with something that they can offer their community so that they can be drawn in and to learn more about the Adventist faith and the love of Jesus. So I just really appreciate that arm of our mission trip, and it couldn't be possible without Brad. So thank you, Brad, for that. Mr. Dave, our faithful bus driver, gets us where we need to be faithfully and picks us up from where we were. So thank you for that, Mr. Dave. Miss Marcy and Miss Sonatina have to deal with all of the wonderful donations that come into the office in the fall, and I know that increases your workload and the hecticness of the office life, but thank you so much for dealing with all of those donations. And speaking of donations, thank you so much for all of our generous donors, because I know that so many of you have donated in such generous ways to these students. It cannot be possible, well, I guess with God all things are possible, but because of your donations, plane tickets are purchased and fees are paid and experiences are had that would not otherwise be possible without that. So thank you so much. A big shout out to Dr. Shaw. Even though he has moved down to the Collegedale area, he still faithfully supports our mission trips. He gives each of the students spending money every year, because Dr. Shaw doesn't want anyone to go on a trip and not have spending money. So he gave each of the students $60 so that they could buy souvenirs. So we really appreciate Dr. Shaw and his heart for Greenville Adventist Academy and for these students and for mission work. A big thank you to Mr. N and to our school board, who faithfully say yes. Because without a school board and without a principal to support these trips, the experiences that you've heard about tonight would not be possible. And so we're so thankful that our school board and our principal support these life-changing, heart-changing experiences. Every year, I don't think it can get better, but every year I have a dream team. And I'd like a big thank you to my chaperones. If you were one of my chaperones, could you please stand? There were 13 of us, so please stand if you were a chaperone. Thank you so much. These are the people, thank you. Yes, let's give them a round of applause, because these are the people that took care of your kids for 2 weeks. These are the people that loved on them, that gave them the Band-Aids, that gave them a Pepto-Bismol tablet, that gave them a hug, that told them it would be okay, that let them use their phone. These are the people that took care of your kids. We had in this group balloon makers and construction taskmasters and prayer warriors and construction site moms and bricklayers and translators and storytellers and photographers and auto-refractor extraordinaires and music leaders and VBS leaders and side-by-side warriors. We had tiny but mighty adventurers. Susan Crutcher. I think Pastor Crutcher's life has been much more adventurous and exciting because his wife is an adventurer. And so thank you for all of these people who put so much time and energy and money into this trip, because the chaperones have to pay their own way. A special shout out to our pastor. And one thing that I'm going to steal from my daughter Katie Jane, when she went to Bolivia as a student missionary, she came back with this idea that doing mission work is actually doing life with people. And that's what mission work is. And I think Pastor Kent, by being on this mission trip with us, he's doing life with these kids. He's what I call a side-by-side warrior. He worked side by side these kids, and they shared with him and talked with him, and he just did life with them. And so I really appreciate that about our pastor. So thank you so much to our chaperones. We had some new ones this go around. We had Lucia and Cheryl, and they were a huge blessing to our trip. I want to, most importantly, thank God for blessing our endeavors, helping us as we raised money, helping us as we planned, helping us as we executed those plans. And what an amazing, mighty God that we serve. I want us to look, let me see the back of your t-shirt. This was our Bible verse. And let the beauty of the Lord our God be upon us, and establish the work of our hands for us. Yes, establish the work of our hands. And so, thank you for supporting these students as they learn to let God establish in their lives His work. So, where to next year? I don't know, but God knows. And so we're looking at different options and exploring different things. And I'm just excited that we'll be going somewhere and we'll be doing God's work somewhere. So thank you again for coming out this evening, and let's end with a word of prayer. Yes.
Thank you for all the effort that you put in. You've given us such amazing memories, and we appreciate it.
Well, to God all the glory, because He gives me the energy, and so I'm just excited that I can be God's hands and feet, because it's such an amazing blessing to work with these kids. You guys would be so proud of these kids when you see them out there. It's fun to have them in the classroom. I'm not going to, say it's not, but to actually see them out there working, out there serving, out there growing up into the adult person that God wants them to be able to be a part of that privilege and to witness that has got to be the most amazing part of my teaching experience. So it's a huge blessing, and you would just be so proud of each and every one of these students. So if one of them is yours, you can be proud of them, because they are amazing. Let's pray. Dear Lord, I thank you so much for this opportunity that we had to serve you in Paraguay. Lord, it's blessed us so much, and I pray that these seeds in the hearts of these students will continue to grow, that they will continue to see the joy found in serving you. May that always be a part of their lives, whether they are in a foreign country or whether they are right here in Greene County. I just pray, Lord, that mission is something that they always have close to their hearts. I pray, Lord, for the church that we left behind in Paraguay. I pray especially for the pastor and his sweet wife. I pray for their service. I pray for them as they minister to those 17 churches. I pray for the Maranatha leaders, for Maciel, for Jacqueline. I pray that you continue to give them energy and strength to plan more trips that others can be blessed. And Lord, all of those people that we met, all of those kids in Vacation Bible School, all of those adults at the Revival Series, all of those people at the church, Lord, bless each one. Help them to grow closer to you because of something we said or did or something they experienced. And Lord, finally, all those steps to Christ that we passed out, help them not to collect dust. Help them to be read. Help people to understand that you are a mighty and loving God, and to serve you is the greatest honor and privilege that we have. And so, Lord, I just ask that you bless us, bless Greenville Adventist Academy, bless our churches that are represented here by these students, and Lord, please help us to have a blessed Sabbath day. We thank you for hearing our prayers, and we ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. And one last thing before you go, if you know anyone of high school age out in the foyer, and you will have these in the bulletin tomorrow as well, we're going to have an Academy Day on March the 3rd. It'll be a fun day from 9 o'clock to 2 o'clock. If you know anyone of high school age that would be interested in coming to Greenville Adventist Academy next year, we would love for you to take a brochure and to pass it on to them. Thanks again for coming out. Good night.